You're good to go.
Awesome. All right. First of all, thank you for joining this call. I really appreciate it. Um, Mukul, I wanted to kind of give you a little more background about the OTAS initiative that we have, unless you have complete information of what it is.
Yeah, sure. I definitely would like to know more because I had a bunch of questions to you. I was going to write to you about them, but yeah, we can discuss them later.
Sure, sure. So basically, the OTAS initiative came from our internal work that we do today. We are a platform um, implementation team in open assets where we, kind of enable issuers um, to deploy or to tokenize their real world assets, right? So that could be anything from your stocks, bonds, stable coins, or whatever that is, right? What we saw was there was a lot of um, tightly coupled information across these chains that we use. Um, what we identified were four different pillars, which we felt had a lot of potential um, of becoming independent and can be used as specs, right? So, to on a high level, we have the identity mechanism, we have your compliance, you have asset metadata, and then eventually your settlement layer, right? So, since we work with various companies, may it be the New York Stock Exchange or whichever for that matter, um, we have to have a settlement layer as well, where we would be eventually working with DTCC and all that stuff, right? So what we identified was everybody, may it be JPMC, may it be Goldman Sachs, may it be your HSBC, they have their own blockchain to do these things and their own way of managing the identity, the asset metadata, your compliance as well as your settlements. Everything is managed within their own ecosystem, right? But this is great if we just had one bank or two banks, right? But when you have multinational banks running across, where you have multiple branches, and then you have, a Goldman Sachs trying to transfer something from their bank to another one, that's where everything breaks. Why? Because there is no interoperability. There is no security. There is no compliance that can manage it, like which is a separate layer, right? So what OTAS is saying that, hey, you have your own implementations the way you do. But when you're talking to everybody else, follow a spec, follow a specification which will allow you to communicate without with a single language, right? So what OTAS is thinking is a specification layer, right? It's not enforcing anyone to build their own implementations, right? We are not into implementations. We are into specifications, a layer higher, more of interfaces. Does that give you clarity of what we are trying to do?
Yes, sure. Yeah.
Awesome, awesome. So that said, what I want us to, or what I would expect from you is, let's get the GitHub repo set up in that way that we have four specific pillars. So we will have identity, we'll have the asset metadata, we'll have compliance, and then we'll have the settlement, right? We can create separate projects within our OTAS, correct? And then OTAS is just a big umbrella around these things, right? And then we have our own contributors contributing to that. We can have a list. We maintain it just like a repo, but you can manage it there as well, right? You'd be able to do that. Number one. Number two, what part of these four pillars you seem to be the most interested in?
Uh, I think I know quite a bit about settlement part of this. I'd be interested to know how they are doing these days in identity part, because we are also dealing with basically financial firms and so on. So that must be a bit construed, I'd say, but we uh, we should be thorough in this, right?
Agreed.
Especially with identity and stuff.
Yeah,
In blockchain, essentially, it is not well marketed identity part, so we should be more thorough with that. And I
agreed.
haven't seen any good standard where identities are marked properly. So
Hmm.
we should be looking into that more in depth.
Right,
Settlement part is something which is fundamental, right? For any
right.
token interaction to have
Hmm.
settlement tokens exist, so settlement has to be there. So which is that is more clear part. Uh, Other parts we need to delve deeper into. And uh, again, you said we should we have four different repositories for those things, or
Yes, yes.
just okay, four repositories? Got it.
Yeah, we could create separate repos within our OTAS repo, right? I mean, as sub projects,
Yes,
what I mean. And then what
right.
what I was
We
thinking
have our
is
organization, and we can have separate
exactly,
repos for this,
exactly.
and
That's
we
how I was
can
thinking.
basically have separate repos for different sample projects or
Yes.
and so on.
So
And
everything can have their
got
own
it.
thing. So, you build everything. So it's
Makes sense.
self-sufficient. If tomorrow, I mean, if someone wants to use OTAS, it doesn't mean that
Mm-hmm.
they have to use all the four pillars. They could ideally just pick one of them and they could use these specs across both the
Right.
systems and then see
Right.
how they will be able to use it, right?
Right.
Um,
Right. And by the way, do we have we thought about what language do we programming language for this, like DAML or like Move or Solidity or Rust and so on?
So again, I mean, it doesn't really matter because
Right.
we have people from SUI who write mostly in Move. Uh,
Move.
most
Yeah.
of the other EVMs they will use Solidity. So
Right.
i- it's a very it's not that we want to be agnostic, right? We want to give them
Cool.
both. We have the specs. If I have a move, then I can make it into a EVM thing also, right? Smart contract. So I don't have a problem with any language as such. It
Mm.
we can identify, we can write it in anything.
Right. Yeah, that's the part I have questions about in general, because in general, when we create standard, they are in specific language, or they have some constraints, right? When we when we are thinking about multiple chains or even multiple different infrastructure layers or different different asset standards altogether, and we are trying to standardize them in some way. So I'm just in
That's a very good
general, I have a
question.
question mark about that.
No, then that's a very good
I'm sure that
question.
is possible, but I haven't
What, yeah,
got
and
an
what we
answer to
can
it.
do is, and this is a very good question. Why? Because I mean, when I was using Go, and I'm just going to give an
Right.
example, when I was using Go, I could compile it into Solidity. I mean, it's not
Yeah.
Solidity. I could compile it for Mac. I could compile it for Windows. I could compile it for a
Right.
Linux,
Bytecode.
a
Right.
bytecode, correct?
Yeah.
And I could use it without any issues, right?
Right.
Obviously, we cannot go to that extent of writing compilers. That's not what we are
Right.
trying to do.
I have compiler design experience in Solidity. I don't know much about
Which is
Rust.
okay because I
I can
have a
write good move and Rust, but I don't have compiler design experience in any of them.
okay, which is still okay. I think initial thing that we want to do is set up the structure, number one.
Right.
See what's available out there within Git itself. Because Git is like it's an ocean of knowledge, right? With so many projects
Mm.
being done, you don't know if people have already done this somewhere else,
Right.
right? So identifying all these resources, putting it in some kind of a form where people can say, hey, these are the various resources that we have looked at. These are
Mm.
close, but these are not exactly what it is. And then create some kind of a white paper for whatever we are trying to do, right? That's very
Right.
important. As an artifact, we need to first identify what is our deliverable, right? Getting all the resources together, creating the project structure, getting all our contributors on track. I know few people didn't join today. I was expecting the SUI team to join. So they are
Mhm.
from the Meissen lab. So they are pretty much doing this work today, right? So they'd be able to give us more in-depth understanding of how we could have gone about what language and whatnot, right? As
Mhm.
a open source community, we cannot tie ourselves to a language, right? Or else then I'm like I cannot use your library and so on and so forth. So
Yeah,
I want to kind of that's how I look at it, right? We could always start with one. Maybe later on, we can always move to another one, or the Meissen team can work with us and start building it in parallel for the move also, right?
right.
So tomorrow, if there are two teams working on move, then there is a specification for that as well, if that makes sense,
Right. Yes.
right?
So,
Cool. So I think we have a few action items,
mhm.
Mukul. What I
Mhm.
would suggest is, I don't know, I think maybe I'll have to talk to Sean to see how you can start contributing towards our Git org that we have and start creating these things. But before that, maybe um, just identify the structure if you could, and then
Sure.
send me an email. Maybe, because, or you could create it and then I can review it and whatever, however it works, right?
Mm.
We could do that.
Works. Uh, if I if I could, I'll make a GitHub repo, private repo, and I
Perfectly
can add
fine.
your GitHub. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Sean, is that all right?
Yeah, sure. McCool, do you have in chat, can you give me your GitHub handle? And I can see about having you added as
Yeah.
uh
Give
I
me a
guess
second.
Sarvesh as a maintainer on the repo so you can start getting involved. Yeah, sure.
Awesome.
Thank you.
No worries. All right, awesome. Let me get going on that.
Awesome. All right. I think for today, I think I have these questions. I mean, these things. Do we, Mukul, I'll open it for questions as such. Do you have anything to discuss? Any questions that
Uh,
you have?
right. Uh, yeah, I wanted to ask, can you share all the resources we have right now about this? So initially, I'll go through everything. I'll try
Hmm.
to understand things which I don't know about yet, or have, so I can basically have a good foundation to go with.
Hmm.
About I know you work with technology and finance and intersection of it for quite some time, so you might know a lot more about these fundamental like institutions, financial institutions, and so on.
Hmm.
So I'd like to know more about them, and if you have some resources, or if
Sure. I'm going
we at
that's
OTAS
a
have some resources, I'd like to basically grasp them and go through them as soon as we are starting this.
No, totally. I'll find what we have, but most of the
Right,
things are still available on the OTAS pages itself. As we go,
right,
we'll be adding more resources to the OTAS. The reason why I'm saying I want to push everything on OTAS is because I want it to be like a wiki itself, right? I
yeah,
want it to
right,
kind of carry all that information, and just like how Sean sends the YouTube recordings and all those things.
right,
Everything in one place helps people to kind of navigate through there itself rather than separate documents. So if I find
right,
anything that is useful, I will let you know, and then we can add it to the Git repo itself in
right.
resources.
We can document it side by side
Exactly,
as we go.
exactly. As we go, and
Yeah,
then we can keep adding new things and keep it going. Um,
sure.
I think next week what I'm going to do is I'm going to make this a little more. Um, I know the community we will send out that email, but I want to kind of call a few people on to contribute. There is someone from from I think from the ETH Alliance team, and then the Meissen group, as well as I think Chainlink wanted to join,
Mhm.
and a few other members. who would be able to kind of contribute towards our initiative, right? Ralph was one
Right.
of them who was very much interested in or has done a lot of work in identity, right?
Right.
So he wanted to kind of, I mean, we had asked him if he could help us with the identity portion of it, but
Uh,
I don't know if
yeah.
he got or he was available today. So next week, most probably next call, I'll make sure that we have
And
people.
by the way, by identity, do we mean a standardized KYC method, or
That's your
we
compliance,
mean
right?
something?
KYC would
Right.
be more about compliance, correct?
Okay. So by identity, we mean identity of the users,
Yes.
or roles in the platform, or identity of assets or organizations.
It's like your IAM today, right? You have your
Right.
AWS IAM, your identity and
Right. Right.
access
Right.
management, right? So something
Right.
on those lines, like your role mappings and everything that can be managed in a way where it is more agnostic of chains and sits in a separate layer where other teams can talk without
Mm.
um, being dependent on being inside the system, right? We'll have to think of how we want
Mm.
to draw that out, but that's how I'm looking at it.
And we also want to be flexible with them, because we can just basically use the best solution available, and some people are not using it, so
Yeah. Yeah,
that
that's where your
doesn't
metadata
conform to.
information will be very important for the simple
Mm.
reason that that's what's going to identify how
Mm.
data
Yeah. Right.
flows and what is PII, what isn't, and everything that needs to be
Right.
managed in the chain and off chain and so on and so forth.
Yeah, because I would think something like ZK would be ideal implementation for identity, right? But
Hmm.
mm, um, everyone might not be interested in it, or some people may have some objection towards it. So yeah, we also want to be flexible in that regard, right? So
I agree.
yeah.
That's pretty cool. Yeah, so I think these are very good options that we have. We should always put those in our calls and see what people think so that when we start building the libraries or whatever that is, right? Even before we get to the build, I think having a white paper on how it would work would be super
Mm.
helpful,
Right.
right? Um, on once we have that, once we feel, hey, you know what, this is in good shape, we start doing a POC for that. Because without having a very good understanding of how it is going to look, if we build
Right.
something, it's not ever going to stick, right? Because people would want to see the white papers first.
Right.
So I would always start with step zero, in this case being the white papers, do our I mean research, come up with our research, put those in on pen and paper, put that on GitHub, see what the community has to say, get some traction on that. Mukul, I know you mentioned that you also have you pretty much know a few people across the ETH world as well as some other places,
Right.
right? I would suggest start spreading the word about OTAS for the simple reason the more you do that, the more the community grows and the more contributors we have. And that's how we will be able to make a difference. So um, I'd suggest you try that out. Yeah,
Right.
cool, cool. Awesome. Um, Isabella, do you have any questions?
No, thank you.
Awesome. All right. Uh, I think we are almost done. Actually, uh, yeah, we're at time.
Awesome.
So,
So two things are going to happen. This call is going to end. The recording is going to get processed. I'm going to post in Discord two links. One to link to the recording with the transcript and any links that were shared. That's like an LF thing. But also,
mhm.
it's going to go to YouTube. We have a YouTube playlist already set up for OTAS. It's ready to go. Um, Someday in the future, that'll magically end up in YouTube. Not today. It takes me about 90 seconds to do it, but it's good to go. And McCool, yeah, all right. You saw my note on the chat. You're added as a maintainer to OTAS as of right now, so good to
Yep.
go.
Awesome, awesome. This was great. So nice having you guys over. Thank you so much for your time. Till next time. Thank you.
Definitely.
Bye
Thank
now.
you, Sarvesh. Thanks,
Thanks.
everybody.
Bye now.